morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vasil Dikov. I am a senior account executive with GDMFX, and I'll be bringing you today's morning outlook. We'll start with the North American markets. We had the new home sales for the month 0.09 million, worse than expected at 0.511 million. The new home sales change for the month was 2.5% weaker than expected at minus 1.5%. And the Dallas Fed manufacturing business index was 0.3 weaker than the previous at minus 13.9. The dollar weakened against its major rivals on Monday as the investors scored positions ahead of policy meeting by the Federal Reserve and Bank of Japan later this week. We expect no change in policy, but the statement will probably be more hawkish, and we'll be paying attention to how the Fed characterizes the international risks. The Dow Jones moved sideways, the Nasdaq as well, and the Dixie was down to 94.77 from 94.93. The US dollar moved with 33 pips down versus the Swiss franc. It was 36 pips down versus the Japanese yen. And today we're going to have the Bank of Canada, the Governor Poloz give a speech, the durable goods orders, excluding transportation, and the S&P Case-Shiller home price index for the year, Markit Services PMI, Markit PMI Composite, and consumer confidence. Moving on to Europe and the European markets. The Germany IFO business climate for April came at 0.4 points weaker than expected at 108. The German IFO current assessment for April came again 0.4 weaker than expected at 107. And the German IFO expectations came at 0.6 weaker than expected at 113.8. The DAX 30 opened with a down gap of 35 points and ended down with 80 points total. The CAC 40 is down with 10 points. Today we're going to only have the trade balance non-EU from Italy. Moving on to the UK markets, yesterday the pound touched a 2-month high at 1.4520 versus the dollar. This was due to subsiding concerns over the British European Union fate. Apparently for now the Brexit hysteria has subsided and investors had a change of heart towards sterling. The FTSE 100 lost 45 points and closed at 6,228 yesterday. The pound was 65 pips up versus the Canadian dollar. It was 53 pips up versus the Kiwi, and it was 43 pips up versus the Australian dollar. Moving on to Japan and the Far Asian markets, the yen strengthened for a second day as the slumping global equities boosted demand for haven assets, outweighing speculations that the Bank of Japan will add to currency weakening stimulus. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's economic advisor said on Tuesday that this week's meeting is the time for the Bank of Japan to act if it wants to be preemptive. Asian equities fell for a third day and copper dropped to a 1-week low as investors shunned riskier assets ahead of central bank meetings in Tokyo and Washington this week. And Abe's advisor Etsudo Honda, who wants the Bank of Japan to bolster its record monetary stimulus in the first half of the year, said it's possible that the authority will expand the purchase of government bonds and exchange traded funds at this meeting while holding the key rate at minus 0.1%. The decision on April the 28th will come a day after the Federal Reserve's meeting in Washington. By contrast, the former Bank of Japan board member Nobuyuki Nakahara said the central bank has no need to rush to add stimulus now, as it should gauge the impact of negative rates adopted in January. The yen is around 110 against the dollar, is a comfortable level for Japan's economy, and that the government would need to intervene if it broke through 100, he said. The Nikkei 225 was 250 pips down, no major movements on the Japanese yen, and we will finish today's outlook with the commodities section of the market. We had not so drastic movements as compared to previous days due to low volatility in the markets right now, as investors are waiting for the 2 central bank meetings this week. Crude oil had $2 range, the gold had a range of $13, the natural gas had a range of 13 cents. It is currently at the previous levels, and silver had a range of 35 cents. That is all for me. Have a nice day, and I wish you safe trading.